Oh, that's me. I'm with the same shirt, a laptop. All right. Hey, everyone. I was going to ask who here knows about Vitest, but that's a very dumb question. So I just wanted to start with, this is a safe space. I really would like to hear who here actually, writes tests. That's pretty good. It's fine if you don't. It's okay. Nobody's judging. Maybe a few. Who here actually writes tests because they think about it, they like? Yeah, that's not a lot, but nobody's judging. So in the past, I used to be a person that didn't like tests at all. And for me, that was just a chore. But in the future, I realized that that was a silly mistake. As soon as I don't write tests in the future, I don't even know what I did. So my name is Yann Braga. I'm a maintainer of Storybook. I work at Chromatic. And I'm here to share our plans to make you a better front-end engineer. So at Storybook, we love front-end. We want really to improve the UX of the world, and therefore we want to, get everybody to hop on into like front-end quality stuff. So when we're talking about component testing, you probably are a little tired of listening about it, given you just had 1 hour of that. But there's like different kind of dimensions or layers. So does your component work? So you might need to interact with the component and assert whether things occur the way they are expected to be. Does the component look right? Because it might be functional, but maybe you get a regression visually, and that actually really sucks. You might lose users on that. And can everybody use it? In Europe, the accessibility theme is quite hot right now because of all the regulations. So we should really account for all of those things when we're building UI. And all of these different dimensions, they require specialized tools. So we have, for instance, Vitest and Playwright, as you have just heard about, that helps you understand whether tests are passing or not. We have Chromatic, that helps you understand whether things are visually correct with visual regression testing. And we have Axe, or Axe Core, to help you understand whether your components are actually accessible. In the center of it all, we actually have Storybook, which aims to bring all those things together and help you become a better front-end engineer. That's enough talk. Actually, let me show you some stuff. You might be quite tired already, so why not make this dynamic? So for the ones that don't know about Storybook, you might be developing an application like this one, and then you have different kinds of components, and sometimes it is hard to run the app, or you just want to care about that one single thing. So Storybook is kind of similar to testing tools, where you can run this thing on the side, and then you can extract that one bit and work in isolation. Similar to how you write tests when you have like a test file. In Storybook, you would have a story file, and I might need to crank this up a bit. So sometimes you don't actually have those test files, and you might be like, well, how do I write it? And of course, you can look into documentation and stuff, but you can also run Storybook. Let me also make this a little bigger, maybe not too much. And we actually have a plus button right here that allows you to create a new story from a component. So let me go to the badge component, which I just saw, and click on it. And automatically, Storybook actually just created a story for me. When I go back to the file system, I see that it has written all of this code for me. So in Storybook, you have a story file where you can define stories. Each of the stories, they capture state of your UI. And over here, I see text. I can change this to ViteConf. I can save it, and then I see it on screen. Because Storybook analyzes your source, it can also identify, if I go into the component itself, all the props and the necessary information so that you can actually play with them around right here. So this is cool. And you can change with this is what we call the controls panel. And that's pretty nice. And you can actually save by clicking on the UI. And when you go back to your stories file, that's saved. So that's very convenient and a very nice way for you to keep up developing stuff, just very seamless. When it comes to writing stories, you have many different kinds of states. The thing is, every story represents a render state of your UI, and in our eyes, every story is a test. If you are using Vitest, Storybook automatically will detect that and it will provide you with extra capabilities to run tests on top of those stories. So actually, all of these stories, they're now then turned onto Vitest tests. And as you can see here at the very bottom, it's quite small, but hopefully this is big enough. Is it big enough? You can click on this button to run tests. So if I click on it, what happens is I can also expand it. Well, it was so fast that I couldn't even see it. Maybe I'll run again. All right, there you go. So we just ran 53 tests, and I can see the statuses on the sidebar, on the check marks, that they all are passing. And that is pretty cool. But what exactly is being tested? So let me go into, for instance, one component that is used in many places. Let me just pretend that the actual render of it fails. Maybe I'm trying to use an API that doesn't exist. So if I run my tests again, what happens is I now get this status here over this like red dot. So it tells me there are 3 component tests failing, and I can also click on this button to filter out and see all of my stories or components that failed. So as I visit them, I see some things like not implemented. So I see it's my restaurant card, and what I can do here is, oh, and by the way, when I click on the Run Test button, this is actually spawning Vitest and Vitest browser mode on the side. This is just headless, so that's why you don't see the Vitest UI, but you can as well just enable that if you wanted to. So apart from running Vitest on all my tests, I can also just click on the Watch Mode button, and that is going to use Vitest to detect the dependency graph of my changes. So if I fix this guy, it is going to rerun all of my tests, and there you go. 11 affected things, all of which are passing. And that is really cool, because now I can really understand the effect of my changes. And what actually got affected was this restaurant card. So what I can do here is I can play with the controls, and I set the loading state, which was the part that got broken, and then I can click on this button right here at the bottom called New. So I can create a new story called Loading, for instance. And that was that. Now I have my base story and my loading story, all with the click of a button. So as an engineer, I care about developing my components. Sometimes I don't really care about testing. But when things are so convenient and so easy, it's not a big deal. I can just run that, put in watch mode, and see the effects of it. And then I start to think more and more about it. And this is not all. You can actually do so much more. So for instance, over here, you see there's a button for a checkbox for accessibility. And I'm just going to zoom in again. You have different things as well. You can enable code coverage and all of that. So if I run the accessibility tests for my components, what I get is a bunch of reports. So in here, I see that I have quite a few stories that get an issue with accessibility. So let's say I click on this guy, and Storybook provides an accessibility panel that you can see all kinds of insights. You can also click on that particular report, and then you can click on the actual warning, and it opens the panel automatically for you. So this is really amazing, and you get all sorts of information, which is very educational, telling you, okay, I have some accessibility issues, which elements are actually having that issue. I can click here to jump to that element, so if the page was long, it would scroll down. I can also click on this button to highlight the accessibility issues. So I can click on this guy and understand more about it. Because, and this is a very interesting thing, so you make a change, you see all of the reported failures, and then you realize that it's all a cascading effect. If you didn't care about accessibility before, and now you want to run tests for your stuff, you're probably going to get like a Christmas trees of like 1,000 errors. It's going to be like very overwhelming. But in Storybook, because you can write all the way down to the most atomic component, but also all the way up to a page or maybe the full application if you wanted to, you can go all the way to that one particular thing which is at fault. So I can look at it, I can understand the issue, and I can just go to it. So this guy, it's a review, has a story file. I can click on this button to open in the editor, and then automatically, poof, I get my story file for that component. I have access to it, so I can just go to it. And I realized that the color was supposed to be of review text and not banner text. I just don't know how to write. So because I'm running tests in watch mode, it's all seamless. So all of a sudden, everything is passing. I see that all the cascading effect is gone, because now all of the components and pages, they are deemed accessible. And I think that's mind-blowing. I don't know about you, but I just realized how convenient things are, and I just want to use it. Apart from that, you also get extra layers. So I mentioned about getting a way to interact with your components and getting a way to know whether your components are accessible. But so far, I have not actually written any tests. So let's go to something a little more complicated. So I've got this restaurant page over here, and it has, well, I crunked up a little too much. I wanted to get some, yeah, there you go. It has some elements over here, and essentially, I want to interact with them, and I want to get some logic to be tested out. So let's just say I want to know whether if I add 4 cheeseburgers, I know you're hungry, but don't worry, we're going to get 34 euros displayed on the screen. So there are 2 options you can do here in Storybook. The first one is you can write code yourself. Storybook provides different testing capabilities. You can write a play function similar to how you would write a test in Vitest. We also have all sorts of annotations like before each and after each that you can use. But there's an amazing add-on from the community from Igor Luchenkov called Interactions Recorder. So similar to how you get the experience with Playwright Code Gen, you can actually just click on a button, start recording. You select what you want, let's say fries, and you start to interact. I'm adding 4 fries to the list, and I can go on this button over here to add an assertion, select my element, and maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. So as you can see, I want to assert that the content says 10 euros. So once I'm done with that, I can see the code which I need to write on the panel right here, but I'm very lazy. So I can also just click on the button Save to Story, and I have 2 options. I either overwrite the current story to add that interaction, or maybe I just create a new one called with fries. So as soon as I save that, I get this story over here, which executes all of the interactions which I did before. We also have a panel that visualizes the code that got written for me. But wait a second, what code is that? So let me go over here and open in the editor. So the story that got written, and I hope this is readable enough. Maybe I'll make it, yeah, cool. So this was all written for me. I didn't touch the code. I just pressed the button. So we have a story that is using mock service worker to essentially mock the network, and that's because the previous story was doing that as well, so it gets reused. And the play function is essentially what you also have seen in, for instance, Jessica's demos. You can do user events to click things. You can also do things like query by role or find by role. And all that stuff has been written for me. I can just play around with that. And when I'm back to here, the interactions panel allows me to actually travel through time. So I can either click on a particular action and see what happens then, or I can like step through them and see they happen right on my face. And then I can go to the end and get a result here that says pass. So this is essentially a very cool way to write tests, to iterate over your components, to get visual feedback as soon as you have any results. And all of that with the very easy flow that Storybook provides. And this is all powered by all of those tools which I've been showing. But I forgot about one thing, which is visual tests. So I've mentioned about Chromatic, which helps you understand whether you have visual regression. So in this case, the testing widget has also a visual tests option, and this is essentially a Chromatic visual tests add-on. And it opens the panel. All I have to do is sign into Chromatic and pray to the demo gods that the Wi-Fi works. Cool, it works. And what happens here is Chromatic is now into my code base. I can just click on a button to run and build all of my stories. What happens here under the hood is Chromatic builds the storybook and all the components, and then it sends them to the cloud where it runs super fast and through a grid of like multiple browsers and different kinds of stuff, visual regression tests, and it tests against baselines and stuff. So if you have any issues or like any kind of warning, you get that here, and I can just visit that particular warning. I can see it right here, visual tests. I click on that button, I visit my story, and I see I have a snapshot. So the snapshot is very cool, and I can actually debug that directly right here. So I can toggle the diff. I can show exactly which parts have been changed because Chromatic detected that. And I can also just like do a back and forth and understand what's going on. Additionally, I can click on this button to go directly into Chromatic and see the difference. I can then start working with my team, and maybe I can just like tag Dom. I don't have to, he's right here, but say like, hey, this is bad. And then I can deny my snapshot because it doesn't make sense. So right here, I see that this is now a failure, and yeah, maybe I shouldn't account for that particular snapshot. So there's all those features all integrated within Storybook's UI, but you might be still saying like, actually, I don't want to see anything. I care about my CLI, I care about CI. Well, the thing is, Storybook and Vitest, they work really well together. So when you write stories, you actually are writing Vitest tests. So as you can see here, as I scroll, there is a mini icon that says click to run tests. And this is a story. And that is all because we have a Vitest plugin, which is then configured for you. And therefore, Vitest starts to understand that all of your stories are tests. So we go back, we click on that button, and then all of a sudden, we get a test output. So Vitest then has run, and I got a result. That was super fast. That was super nice. The other thing is, you might be also, such as what Vladimir demoed, you might be using the Vitest extension, and you might want to see all of your tests. So this essentially is mixing all of your known component tests with your component tests from Storybook. And you might still, yeah, maybe I don't care about that at all. I just really want to run this in my terminal, and I want to see how that looks in CI. Well, let's just run npx vitest. And I get all of my tests to run. And as you can see here, it says review stories, sidebar stories. And it just took 5 seconds to test those 64 stories. So all of those things are then gathered together. You might still not believe me. Maybe what I can do here is like completely kill Storybook because we actually don't need it anymore. And I'm going to go to my Vitest workspace, and I'm going to make this headed by default. So my test will rerun, and then now I get Vitest browser mode. Watch out for the epilepsy stuff. And all of my components are tested. How cool is that? Thanks. So that was the demo. I really wanted to showcase all of these layers that we sometimes don't really think about. So you've got interaction tests where you need to make sure code is working as intended. Storybook then connects with Vitest, which then connects with Playwright, so you can get a real browser experience for those very complete tests. You get accessibility tests by using Axcore and Vitest and Playwright. So you can also get to see how things render directly in a real browser. And finally, you also get visual tests when using Chromatic. So when we go back into all of the dimensions of those specialized tools, Storybook is essentially the epicenter, bringing all of them together. And in turn, which I would hope, making you a better engineer. So that was pretty much what I had to show. And there are very important things and things we want you to know about in Storybook 10, which is coming right away. Just wait a second. And one of the first things, and you probably have seen James talk yesterday about all kinds of improvements that the ecosystem performance group has been doing. And this is a lot thanks to him. Thanks so much. Essentially, Storybook is growing, but also decreasing somehow, because we are making it slim. So Storybook 8, as you can see here, maybe I'm just going to zoom in. It's not really that readable at all. This is essentially what you can see here is a graph of all of Storybook's dependencies and their peer dependencies and so on. That's a lot. And in here, we have Storybook 9. And this is actually to scale. So we've got an incredible, crazy amount of deduplication and decrease. And in Storybook 10, we're going even further by removing CJS entirely. So Storybook is then with a lot of bloat that gets reduced. It's 15% smaller size than Storybook 9. It has less complexity and less bugs. and of course, future-proof, because the future was supposed to be ESM, 8 years ago? And we're finally getting there, so that's good. The other thing that we are introducing is a new story CSF, or component story format syntax. This is all optional. You don't have to use this. We have backwards compatibility to all of the other previous ones. But essentially, we have a new syntax where the code that you're writing is chained, and there's no magic. A lot of people in the past have said that, like, how do I know that the things I write in the preview file affect my stories? Well, in this case, you know because you're importing it. And then because of that, you get the fully type safe code. It's all inferred, and you don't actually have to import types of anything. It's all understood by the code editor. So you create a story by using this factory function, method.story. And the nice, cool thing is that that extends extra capabilities. So now a story is able to have some methods. So we're also introducing a new way to write tests in a more familiar way. So the tests are attached to the stories, and as you can see here, and maybe I'm just going to zoom in a little more, I have a disabled button, and then I add a test by doing .test. So now I can define the string with the name of my test, and inside of the function, I can just write pretty much what I would have written with Vitest in a Vitest file. And as a result, what you get is a new way to show that in the sidebar. So now a story has a hierarchy for its tests. So this is a very nice way to organize your stuff. You now have different tests. You can see them as tests, so they have like a very specific purpose. But you get all of the extra stuff on top of it. You get the accessibility test, the visual regression test, the debuggability, and all that stuff. So, and finally, because if you don't mention AI in 2025, you're like dead. So essentially, Storybook is also thinking about AI, and we want to improve your experience as an engineer. If you're working on, let's say, a design system, or you maybe want to create one, or when you're doing any UI of any kind, you can now use Storybook's MCP server. So in here, excuse me, I have prompted, build me a nice looking card UI component. And what happened here is Cursor identified that I have a Storybook MCP server, which then instructed the agent to essentially write the code, but with Storybook in mind. So what it's doing is, sure, I'm going to do stuff for you, but I'm also going to make sure to document it very well and write stories for it. And at the bottom, once everything is done, it tells me like, okay, I have done it. These are the list of stories. You can click on this button to visit them right away. And what you get is this very cool What you get is this very cool set of examples, very well documented right in Storybook. So as soon as you start iterating with AI, now you have this very quick visual output for your loop, which is incredible. On top of that, because stories are now tests, your AI agent can also run Vitest on top of them and then figure out, let me write some tests for it as well. Oh, the tests are failing, no problem. I'm going to run the tests again until I get them right. So that's pretty much it. I hope that you understand the value of bringing all of the tools together. Sometimes we feel a little overwhelmed, but every one of these tools is quite important to, in the end, make you the best engineer you can be. If you have any questions, you can reach out on Blue Sky. There's a QR code if you're interested to know more about the testing in Storybook. And Storybook 10 is coming, so keep tabs on that. Thank you so much.